mean to you? Hearing what has transpired in the past, basically from past generations, but also what does this day mean to you today? Cherita, if you want to step us up.
So for me, watching this film did not give me the sense of, oh wow, we've come so far. It actually created a deeper sense of accountability of how dare we be so complacent. And 74 years later, we're still fighting for our place. 74 years later, Black women are underrepresented in every field, in every industry, and overrepresented in every field of low-paying jobs. And I think that we need to take a page from our ancestors and fight with the strength of our ancestors, not friendly, as the director said. Not friendly. That's ridiculous. Because when you are in a space where 80% of Black women are primary breadwinners, 80%. 30% of Black women head of households in Chicago are at or below the poverty line. There is nothing to be friendly and excited and congratulatory about. I have a renewed, well, that's what my job is, right? But it continues to burn my flame to know that I have to continue to be the voice of the voiceless, and I have to make my fight stronger and push harder and raise my voice higher. And if the voice is not working, go stand in front of something, go rally, go activate. Do these things that's going to make people uncomfortable, like I'm making many of you uncomfortable right now. But that's okay, because we have to be uncomfortable to force a change. And we have to be okay with that uncomfortableness. And so that's what I took out of that. And that's what today means to me, is not just about commemoration, but it is about amplification. It is about not allowing people to forget.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. First, and I also want to just give a quick shout out to Cherita and Dory McWhorter and a couple of others for their letter in the Tribune yesterday. I don't know how many people saw that, but want to acknowledge that. So I just recently started The Warmth of Other Suns. I don't know how many people have read the book, but it's the story of the Great Migration of African Americans from the South to the North. And so many things are just going through my head right now that, while we've made some strides, we are not nearly where we could be. Actually, I was on the phone with my 90-year-old grandmother yesterday. Actually, she's going to be 90 later this year, and she's in Haiti. My father's from Haiti, and she's spending some time down there trying to find me a husband, which was part of the reason why she called. She said, "Drew, what are you doing in December? How do you feel about coming down to Haiti with me?" I was like, "Oh my God, mommy's up." But so the story of my grandmother and how she immigrated to this country is she grew up in Jacmel, which is the second largest city in Haiti outside of Port-au-Prince. And this wealthy white Canadian Haitian woman went to her village and her city and somehow made her way to my great-grandmother's house, who was a widow at that point with 7 small children. And my grandmother was second, she was the youngest in the family. And my great-grandmother said to this other woman, take your pick, have whichever one you want. The practice of child labor is pretty common in Haiti. They're called restavex. And so this woman picked my grandmother. And my great-grandmother was excited about that because she wanted one of her children to escape the poverty that they were living. And so my great-grandmother went and lived with this family, and that woman then ended up coming to this country and enabled my grandmother to come here, which then is the reason why I'm here today. And last weekend, hopefully you can follow this story, but last weekend we were celebrating my uncle, so her son's 50th birthday, and he made a point of telling all the young people in the room, his daughter, my cousin, is getting ready to go off to school, not to forget that you're standing on the shoulders of ancestors, and you're standing on the shoulders of people who have had it a lot harder than you will ever experience in this world. And so similar to what Cherita is saying, watching this documentary, which is so needed, when we look at the way that we talk about the history of this country as if we're united, we're not. We talk about this country as if we're post-color. I don't like to say race because there's only one race, there's a human race. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but I do, words matter, and when we need to be intentional with the words that we use. And so we talk about this country as if we're in a post-color world, and we're not. And so similar to what my fellow panelist has said, Cherise, it makes me heavy seeing this reality. We have to be real when we talk about the issues and the isms that we're still confronting every day. But more than that, it ignites a fire within me to want to do more, to want to dig down deeper, to want to continue to fight, to want to step into the fire, to want to put myself out on a limb, even when I don't necessarily identify with that cause. I'm the head of diversity for a local investment management firm, and that is my task. I can't just be thinking about one segment, I have to be thinking about all underrepresented groups. But this particular film, it makes me want to just keep fighting harder for Black women, for people that I identify with personally. Okay, let me stop, because I'm getting fired up right now, but I'm going to just step off and allow Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. Really excited to be here, very humbled. As I watched the film, I went through a gamut of emotions, and I would say, as I watched it, the thing that kept coming to my mind was standing in the gap. So we talk about the gap, and these women stood in the gap for us during World War II, and I love the line, without all the people who stood there would be no victory. And so when Sam got up, she used the word she rose, and I thought, I like that word, very cool. But one of the things that I thought about was when I was a junior at the Air Force Academy, a Tuskegee Airman named Lieutenant Colonel Lee Archer, he came up to me, and I was originally intending to do something with languages, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about flying at all. And I was anticipating becoming Condoleezza Rice. I wanted to be Secretary of State, after becoming an ambassador and things like that. So that was kind of my intent. But he looked at me and he said, "Are you pilot qualified?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And then he said, "If you don't stand on our shoulders, who will?" And I thought, wow. It was a very convicting thought for me, because I realized that I had a unique opportunity and I had a responsibility. And so now, I'm privileged, I'm humbled, I guess I would say, to be one of fewer than 150 Black female professional pilots. However, we obviously have work to do. And when I think about that, a lot of people get excited about that, and it opens a lot of doors. But at the end of the day, I didn't wake up every day of pilot training thinking I want to stand in this gap. I just did what I did. And then now, as I have the opportunity to pass on that training to young people who are underrepresented and underprivileged, I just think I'm taking the next step. I see a gap, and I'm gonna fill it, find a need, and fix it. And so I don't think that as we hear this call to action, we should be intimidated or discouraged. But I do think that if we see gaps that we need to stand in, and we stand in it, then we will continue to progress. So I'm excited, and the film really made me think, and I'm very appreciative for Dr. Cook's work. Thank you, Erica.
So, the film just reminds me of my why. It's a language that we use at the union, your why. Why do you do what you do? And for me, the why that I do what I do is because my mom was a single mother who was a CNA who worked 2 jobs. And then I started working in a union that represented Black women who were what you would historically call domestic workers, who weren't even considered worthy enough to make minimum wage. And so we look at what does that look like when you have Black women who, as Cherita said, are mostly heads of their households, are mostly in service industries, and their wages. It speaks to the way that work is valued in this country. And so we have to look at who is doing the work and what the value actually is. And when we are not being paid what we're worth, what things are at our disposal. So I too was annoyed by the director. And annoyed because my job every day is to take action, right? In terms of making sure that, yes, I have it better than people have, but by no means am I okay with where we are right now. There are Black women who are paid less than minimum wage that we are fighting for right now, a sub-minimum wage. And elected officials don't get it or don't understand because they're not living that life. They are so far removed from what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, to have to work more than one job to take care of your family, and then look down on us when in a lot of ways the system has failed. Our education system is not what it should be. It's funded by property taxes. So depending on the neighborhood that you live in, that determines your destiny. That determines your resources. That determines if you're able to go on and continue your education and win more. So everybody can't do that. And when you can't do that, there are other tools that are at your disposal. One of those tools is organizing in a labor union. So we represent 90,000 women who are mostly women of color who range the gamut of long-term care, from child care to home care to nursing homes to hospitals. These are jobs that are important. It is the fastest growing industry in this country, and you can't ship sick people overseas. So we have to talk about what it really means to value this work, to pay people what they're worth. And that means these women who make low wages, they're paying money into our COPE fund. That's $5 a check. But that $5 is a sacrifice to say, I'm willing to put this money towards a candidate that's going to fight for me. And then when we can't find candidates who are going to fight for us, we started an independent political organization called United Working Families to run candidates that come out of our own institution. So one of the people that we just helped to elect was Jeanette Taylor. Jeanette Taylor was a person who's a single mom, has 5 kids, volunteered, was an LSC worker, but got fed up with the system and the way that it was. Every alderman before her went to jail, but she saw a need in her community. Rahm Emanuel closed 50 schools in this city, in Black and brown communities. And she put her body on the line, on the diet school, on a hunger strike. They went on a hunger strike for 30 days to say, not in my community, and was able to save it. So it's not about waiting on somebody to come save us. We are the people that are going to save us. And so we have to band together and do the work. And that is a part of doing the work. She was elected, whoop, whoop. So when we can't change it with the people who are a part of the system, we have to get inside the system and push from the inside. So we can push from both ends to make it happen. So that's just a little bit of what we're doing.
So